You never really notice how loud a house is until you're left alone in it. Today on Murmurs in the Dark, a quiet babysitting job takes a slow, unsettling turn. The house makes noises, sure, but some of them don't sound like the house, and some things should have been locked. This is The Man in the Dining Room. Lower the lights, put on your headphones, and stay very, very still. The first sound was quiet enough that I thought I'd imagined it. Just a soft, hollow clunk from somewhere downstairs. Not loud, not urgent, the kind of noise you could blame on a loose vent cover or a refrigerator shifting its weight. I didn't even lift my head off the pillow. It was close to midnight. The house was dark, quiet, and way too big. I was babysitting for a family I didn't know that well, friends of my aunt's. The kind of setup where someone goes, "My nephew's responsible, he could use a little cash." And suddenly you're watching a kid you've never met in a house that smells like eucalyptus and new drywall. The kid, Liam, was already half asleep when I got there. 8 years old, bedroom upstairs, out cold by 9:30. I'd played a few rounds of Mario Kart with him, gave him some mac and cheese, then watched him wander off to bed like it was just part of the simulation. The parents, Mr. and Mrs. Callahan, had left me a typed list. Alarm code, emergency numbers, bedtime routine, the whole suburban babysitting Bible. And now I was lying in their guest room, scrolling on my phone, slowly losing the feeling in my legs. Then another sound. This one's sharper, like a door creaking open, but fast. Not a ghostly creak, more like someone trying not to make noise. I sat up slightly, listening. Nothing. The house made noises. That was normal. It was big, 2 floors, wood floors, too much open space. I'd walked around earlier when they left, and every step sounded like someone moving furniture. Probably the furnace, or pipes. I turned the phone screen back on. It was 12:07 a.m. I debated texting someone, but what was I even going to say? "Hey, I heard a sound in a house that's not mine. Please validate my anxiety." I laid back down, listened to the stillness again. Then came the third noise, not from downstairs, from the hallway. A soft shuffle, just outside the guest room door. I froze. Liam's room was across the hall. I listened for his door opening, footsteps, anything, but heard nothing else. Just that one shuffle, like someone adjusting their stance. I sat up, now fully awake. The floor outside didn't creak again. Maybe he'd gotten up to use the bathroom. I waited. 30 seconds passed, then a minute. Then I stood, quietly, slid my phone into my pocket and stepped to the door, listening with my ear close to the wood. No breathing, no footsteps, nothing. I opened it slowly. The hallway was empty, but down at the far end, Liam's bedroom door was open. I was sure I'd close Liam's door. Not all the way, but close, just like the Callahans had asked. "Leave it open a crack," they'd said. Now it was halfway open, not swung wide, but enough to make me stop and stare. I walked over slowly, heart thudding in my chest, and leaned in. Liam was still in bed, curled up under a Star Wars blanket, one arm thrown over his pillow, completely still, peaceful. I stared a little longer than I needed to, just making sure. Then I reached out and eased the door back into position. Not all the way shut, just back to where it had been. A crack. The hallway behind me felt heavier somehow, like the house was holding its breath. Then, from downstairs, another sound. Louder. Click. Not a creak, not a pop from the walls. It was the mechanical sound of a doorknob turning, and then stopping. I stopped too. Every part of me went still. The air felt colder. My fingers tightened around the phone in my pocket. I stood there, not blinking, waiting for something, anything, to follow it. But nothing came, just silence. I backed out of Liam's room, closed the door to a sliver, and stood in the hallway, suddenly hyper-aware of how far I was from the stairs, from the exits. I didn't want to make a scene, didn't want to be the guy who panics and calls 911 over a weird noise. But something was wrong, I knew it. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app, not to call anyone, just to document it. 12:16 a.m. Heard doorknob downstairs. Liam asleep. Hallway cleared. It felt stupid, but I needed a record, some proof that I hadn't imagined it. Back in the guest room, I reached behind the door and grabbed the aluminum baseball bat I'd noticed earlier, probably Liam's. Light, dented, but solid enough. I moved down the hallway and stopped at the top of the stairs. The hallway light downstairs, the one the Callahans had specifically left on, was off. My stomach sank. I hadn't touched that switch. From where I stood, I could see part of the living room, the edge of the kitchen, and the front entryway. That's when I noticed the side door. I didn't even realize the house had a side door until now, and it wasn't shut, just hanging slightly ajar, open enough to show a sliver of darkness beyond. My hand gripped the bat tighter. Then I heard it, a single step, wood floor. Someone was in the house. I held the bat tighter and crept down the first step. It let out a groan, loud enough that I stopped breathing. Nothing moved. I waited a full 10 seconds before going down another, then another. Step by step, slow and quiet. At the bottom, I stood in the shadow of the stairwell, my back pressed to the wall, listening. The side door was maybe 10 feet away. It was definitely open. Not blown open by wind, not stuck on a bad hinge, open. Just a sliver, like someone had slipped inside and hadn't bothered to close it all the way. I thought about running back upstairs, locking the bedroom door, calling the police. But what if Liam woke up? What if someone got to him first? I couldn't take that chance. I moved toward the door slowly, bat raised halfway, not like I knew what I'd do with it. The kitchen light was off, but there was just enough glow from the street lamp outside to cast soft light over the tile. I passed the fridge. My shoes didn't make a sound. Then I stopped. There was a man in the dining room. He was standing completely still, just beyond the entryway, where the hardwood met the tile. Not hunched over, not searching drawers, just standing, facing me. I couldn't move. He wore dark clothes, hoodie, black jeans, thin build, no mask. His face was pale and long, eyes sunken, no expression, just looking at me. Not startled, not scared, just calm, like I was the one in the wrong house. The silence between us felt like it stretched for minutes, but it couldn't have been more than a few seconds. My heart was slamming. I raised the bat slightly higher, not even sure if I could swing it. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't run. Then, finally, he tilted his head, just a little, almost like he was disappointed, and then he turned. No rush, no panic, just walked back toward the side door and slipped out into the night. Gone. I didn't chase him, I didn't move. Not for a long time, just stood there, gripping that stupid bat, trying to convince myself I hadn't just imagined it. But I had seen him. He saw me, and whatever he was there for, he left without it. I locked the side door with shaking hands, then the front, the back, the windows, every bolt and latch in the house. I checked the basement door, even though I hadn't heard anything down there. I checked it twice. Then I went upstairs and checked on Liam. He was still asleep, completely still, wrapped in his blanket like the world hadn't changed. I stood in his doorway for a while, just watching him breathe. I kept waiting for something else to happen, for another sound, another shadow, a second figure, but the house stayed silent. At 12:58 a.m., I called the police. I told them someone had entered the house through an unlocked side door, that I'd seen him, that he'd left. They were here in 6 minutes. 2 cruisers, flashlights, gloves, calm voices. They swept the house while I stood on the porch in my socks, explaining what I'd seen. I described the guy. Maybe 6 feet tall, thin, light skin, dark clothes, pale, quiet, didn't speak, didn't take anything. One of the officers asked if he looked confused. No, I said. He didn't look confused. They didn't find any signs of forced entry, just the side door, unlocked. I told them I hadn't touched it, that it was already open. They asked if I was sure. I was. I didn't call the Callahans until after the police had left. Told them what happened. Told them Liam never woke up. That I was sorry. That the cops had already checked everything. Mrs. Callahan was silent for a long time before she spoke. "Thank you," she said finally, "for staying calm." They came home early. Mr. Callahan checked every room himself while his wife sat with Liam. She offered me more money than we'd agreed on. I told her it wasn't about that. When I finally got home, The sun was starting to rise. I showered and laid in bed, but I didn't sleep. Not for hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man's face. Expressionless, still, watching me like he didn't care whether I lived or died. He hadn't come to steal. He wasn't high. He didn't panic when I saw him. He just stood there. And for a moment, neither of us moved. That's what gets me. Even now, he had time to do something, anything, and he didn't. Not because he was afraid, but because he changed his mind. People always ask what he wanted. I don't know. He didn't take anything. Didn't say a word. Just stood there, staring, until he decided to leave. And that's what stays with me. It wasn't rage or desperation. It wasn't even fear. It was indifference. Like I didn't matter. Like none of it did. Now I check every lock twice. I don't sleep near doors or windows. I don't let silence feel too quiet. Because someone walked into a house he didn't belong in, and for reasons I'll never understand, he walked back out.